Hello, thank you for joining me today. Welcome back to my channel. I am that NEMT girl. If this is your first time here, welcome and thank you for joining in. Please make sure to like, follow, and subscribe so that you do not miss any of the updates. Today we're jumping into a new video. Today's topic is how to select a wheelchair van. So welcome to my channel. If you missed this topic on the live that I did about 2 Wednesdays ago, this is one of our topics that we discussed. So I decided to run it back as a YouTube video because some of you all had missed it. So you all can play it back endlessly, okay? Now, please take heed that the things I want to discuss today are simply tips and an overview of things that you should look out for when purchasing your wheelchair van. Please, by all means, do some extra research to see which vehicle you feel most comfortable either starting off with or adding to your fleet. Okay, so first things first, let's jump into some of the specs of vehicles, such as the dimensions of the doorway entry, side entry versus rear entry. Those things make a difference. So with side entry wheelchair vans, you have the ramp that comes down on the passenger side of the vehicle, and the client is input into the vehicle that way. Typically, they have a bench in the back, and you can put one ambulatory client up front. Anyone who's riding in the back with that client that gets into a side entry wheelchair van is typically a loved one, like a family member or a partner or a nurse's aide or something of that sort. Now, with the rear entry, you have, of course, the wheelchair goes through the back, and then you have typically 2 seats in the middle, and then you can also put an ambulatory client in the front. Me personally, I prefer a rear entry because it allows you to get the most out of your load. And what I mean by that is you can have a wheelchair client in the back and still get 3 ambulatory clients who will feel comfortable sitting in the van together. Whereas if you have that side entry client who is inside of that van, and then you have that one bench that is behind the wheelchair, it kind of makes the passengers uncomfortable. So you only want to put that one ambulatory client in the front if you do have some outside loads. So that's what I mean when I say getting the most for your load. Another plus with rear entry wheelchair vans versus side entry wheelchair vans is that with the rear entry van, you can also transport stretcher clients. And so you're not limited to the level of clientele that you can transport, right? You can do ambulatory, wheelchair, and stretcher. Whereas with the side entry wheelchair van, you can only do ambulatory and wheelchair. So just something to think about. Now, depending on the year, make, and model of the vehicle, the rear entry is typically going to run you more in cost than the side entry. So that's something to take heed of, okay? Just depends on what your budget is looking like for this van. Okay, now you may have seen some manual vans, and then you may have seen some electric vans, right? In terms of the motor for the ramp. Me personally, because I've dealt with both, I always say manual is the best way to go. Yes, it is more wear and tear on your body. However, the longevity of your van, it typically will last you longer, and I will get into the specs of that in more detail in 1 second. So yeah, manual, of course, you have to lift it up, bring it down. You do have some strain in your back, I won't lie, so a back brace will come in handy for you or your team. Now, the electric, of course, is easy peasy. You just press the button, boop, the ramp comes down or it comes out. It just depends if it's coming from the floor or if you have a rear entry like the newer models and you have that automatic lift that goes up and down. Now, I do not discredit those. Those are chef's kiss. Like, I love those. I don't have one of those in my fleet. We're working towards that. But I will say those are some nice vans. And I'll try to put a picture in between this clip so you all can see what I'm talking about, or somewhere around here. However, the downfall of an electric ramp is obvious. You know, once that ramp goes out, if it does go out, the motor in it for some whatever reason, then you can't transport using that ramp. You know, some vans have a feature where if the ramp is kind of communicating with the engine in a certain way, then the transmission will lock and you cannot move that van out of gear. So the van will literally be stuck. And I'm speaking from experience, okay? So that's just something to think about. Keep that in mind. By no means do I want to discourage you. I'm just letting you know from my personal experience and also from other providers that I have worked with personally, their experience with manual versus electric. So if you have your eye on electric, please do not let me discourage you, but I'm just giving you some tips, okay? So again, do your own research. All right, so let's talk about dimensions. And so this is really important, something that I was not knowledgeable on when I first jumped out there and purchased my first wheelchair van. However, they have different sizes for the door entryway. Duh. Everyone is a different size, of course. No one is a standard size. I have three main sizes for the standard wheelchair door. You have your standard size, which is a 32-inch doorway. You have your bariatric size, which is a 36-inch doorway. And then you have your extra large bariatric, which is 42. And I do apologize, I did not define what bariatric means, but bariatric or a bariatric client is anyone that will be defined as being obese. So the reasons to be knowledgeable on that and to be aware of the dimension sizes is because you don't want to limit the clientele that you can take in. You may have a large population of bariatric clients that need your services, but if you purchase just a standard van, then they're not going to be able to fit inside the van. It's very uncomfortable to try to force someone inside of a doorway, and they shouldn't have to. Now, with the extra large bariatric doorway, I'm going to say that's not a bad thing to shoot for. However, if this is your first van, the extra large bariatric doorway vans are going to be more in cost. Very, very costly. So if you can, I would say try to shoot for that standard bariatric, which is the 36 dimension. But if not, definitely at least start off with the standard, which is 32. I would say the average client that you would see on a regular basis is between the standard and the bariatric. But you will have some extra large bariatric as well that will seek out your services. Okay, so I want to jump into some pros and cons in terms of purchasing from a certified dealer and purchasing from a private dealer. I've done both. Okay, so there are several pros that you're going to have with purchasing from a certified dealer. Number one, of course, maybe the most obvious is lower maintenance. They have different checkpoints that they have to adhere by before a vehicle is placed on the floor. So before they can even put a price tag on that baby and say, hey, we're going to sell this, they have to go through a lot of different checkpoints to ensure that this vehicle meets their standards and that it lives up to what the company has promised. You're also going to have warranties available for you. Now, I will say, depending on how far out your company is traveling initially, I'm not sure where you are in your journey of your business, but you may be able to purchase a warranty through a third party that may be a little bit cheaper versus going through the dealership, because they may have a certain limit, maybe 3,500 miles or 7,000 miles, and you're going to eat those miles up quick, okay? Especially with doing NEMT. So you want to make sure that you're getting a warranty that, number one, it's worth the money for you, because it's not cheap to purchase these warranties, but you definitely need them. Okay? The number one warranty that I recommend seeking is the powertrain warranty, which covers the engine and the transmission. Because in this business, that's going to be the first thing to go. That's going to be the most expensive thing to go on your van. So you just want to make sure that that's covered in the event that happens. Another pro, whatever vehicle reports that you are requesting from the dealership, they're going to have right on hand because they want to sell this vehicle. So it's not going to be something that is pushed back off on you in terms of a cost. They're not going to try to hide the report from you for whatever reason, you know. It's going to be easily accessible. So that's also a pro when purchasing from a certified dealer. Now we're going to jump into the cons, okay? So some of the cons I'm going to name, depending on where you are in your business journey with NEMT, they may not be cons for you, but they are for me on my list, so here we go. Number one, it's going to come with a higher price tag. So you may want to do some financing. You may be able to purchase outright. Just depends on where you are in your business journey. However, if you are going to do some financing, then you definitely want to do your research, because that's going to increase your business overhead versus if you're able to purchase the vehicle outright without having an extra car note or any additional financing to that. You are able to get a bigger return on your investment when it comes to getting your clients' trips paid for. Now, if you are going to have some financing on that vehicle, then that means you're also going to have a higher insurance bill that's associated with that, because you still have a lien on that vehicle. So it has to be covered in totality, and typically it's going to be a newer vehicle, right? So you're going to have a higher insurance bill. Again, it depends on where you are on your journey of your NEMT business right now. Those things may not be cons for you, but I like to name those because they're definitely some good ones to look out for, okay? Now, some things to look out for when purchasing a vehicle from a certified dealer is, number one, you want to check with your business bank or your personal bank to see if you can get financing from them first before going through the dealership. Reason being, you'll typically get a better interest rate in the loan. Make sure you get car reports, and if you can, try to test drive the vehicle overnight. Make sure that you can test drive it at least for an hour if it's not overnight. But most dealerships or certified dealerships will allow you to keep the vehicle overnight so that you can get a good feel for it. So if that's available for you as an option, take it. Inquire about the warranties, see if it's about mileage, and then compare the price tag. Is it worth it? Do your own homework to see what third-party warranties are out there that do cover the engine and the transmission, because if the mileage warranty that the dealership is offering you is not really going to cover the typical mileage or the average mileage that your company drives, then it's not going to be worth it. Go through a third party. Okay, so moving right along into purchasing from a private dealer, we're going to jump right into the pros, okay? So typically it's going to be cheaper in rates when purchasing from a private dealer. It's going to be a used vehicle 9 times out of 10. You may come across someone who has a van that has recently been broken in and they want to get it off their hands because they may be selling their business. They may have purchased a van for a loved one and they may have passed on. They may have purchased a vehicle for the loved one and they no longer need it. It's just different situations that you will find a private dealer that is selling a wheelchair van. So when that does come about, you want to make sure that you also ask for the reports. Now, when it comes to Carfax reports, the private dealer is responsible for taking on that cost. Sometimes they want to, sometimes they don't. It just depends, but push for them to do so because you're paying a lot of money for a vehicle that they're selling. So make sure you demand something for yourself, okay? Now, 2 of the main cons when purchasing from a private dealer is that, number 1, you may run into some mechanical issues. Number 2, the vehicle may not have that much life left. It just depends on how much wear and tear the vehicle accrued. It also depends on how many owners the vehicle had, how the owners took care of the vehicle. What was the vehicle used for? Was it for commercial use? Was it for private use? If it was for commercial use, how many businesses owned it? So all of those things come into play when purchasing from a private dealer, and you want to make sure you're asking these questions as thorough as possible. You also want to make sure, if you can, to take a mechanic with you if you have a local mechanic that's nearby. Make sure that they can go with you to look at this vehicle and check it out. Typically, a private dealer is not going to let you keep the vehicle overnight, but they will let you or allow you to test drive it for an extensive amount of time. So try to work out something before taking a look at it or driving out there to look at the vehicle. And, either over the phone or via email, you all agree to a time frame that you can test drive that vehicle. Okay, so just like I said, some things to look out for with the certified dealer, here are some things to look out for with the private dealer. You want to make sure that they have a clean title. You're not looking for a vehicle that has a rebuilt title or a salvage title. No, you want a clean title. Test drive that bad boy on the highway. You are trying to look for the life of the transmission and the life of the engine. Does the transmission easily switch gears when you're accelerating speeds? Do you hear any knocking noises? Do you get a good acceleration? How are the brakes? Are you having to slam on them? Do they need rotors? How are the tires? What's the tire pressure looking like? Any lights on the dashboard? Also, too, the lights on the dashboard thing can be a little tricky because they can turn the lights off. It just depends. But you want to make sure that you can drive it for an extensive amount of time during the test drive, because typically after about an hour or 2, then whatever lights they may have tried to cut off will cut back on. Also, you want to make sure that you request a list from the private dealer of any major mechanical work that has been done. If they've had an alternator replaced, a transmission replaced, if they've had an engine replaced, you want to make sure when they had that replacement done, what mileage it was at when that broke down, what mileage was the new engine or the refurbished engine or whatever installed into the vehicle. You want to make sure you have a list of that because you're going to need that. Make sure you get a bill of sale, okay? Do not leave without getting a bill of sale, please. That is your ticket to say, hey, I purchased this vehicle. You're going to need that for registration time. And, finally, again, make sure you request the Carfax reports. And if you can, take a mechanic out there with you to look at the vehicle. All right, just a quick wrap up to go over what we covered in today's video. We talked about side entry vans versus rear entry vans, and I'm a fan of rear entry. Manual, to be exact. Again, the newer models, such as the Ford Transits that have the ramp on the back where you press the button and it's automatically lifted up and down, I love those. Chef's kiss. However, if that is not in your budget right now, and we're talking about being budget friendly and what you can afford, then manual rear entry van. Why? I told you it's because it has longer life to it when it comes to that motor staying intact, and you're not missing out on any money in case the motor does go down. I went over the dimensions of the door entryways for the different standards that they have. Standard, bariatric, extra large bariatric. Standard is 32 inches, bariatric is 36, extra large bariatric is 42. And finally, I gave you all some pros and cons to look out for when purchasing from a certified dealer as well as a private dealer. So I hope these tips and tricks will help you out in the journey of either purchasing your first wheelchair van or adding to your fleet. Wherever you are in your business journey, I hope this video helps you out. As always, I thank you all for tuning in with me. Make sure you check me out on live each Wednesday. We have moved the time. It was at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is now at 7 p.m. You can check me out on Facebook at That NEMT Girl or on Instagram at That NEMT Girl. Make sure you bring your questions down. We go live for about an hour. And I want to make sure that you have your questions jotted down so that you get the most out of that time together that we have. Also, if you feel like you're stuck and you need some assistance, I do have 2 options available for consultation calls. Check out my website at www.thatnemtgirl.com. And as always, make sure you are subscribed to this channel so that you do not miss any updates. I thank you all for watching, and until we meet next time, stay safe. Bye.